Well, hello, friend, and welcome to another episode of Van Life Living in New York. I'm just here to talk about some real things today about corporations and why it is that I say that a publicly traded corporation is the thought of Satan manifest into flesh. And even if you don't believe in Christianity or Jesus, I do recommend you listen a little while because you're going to hear some interesting things and a different way of looking at things than what you'll often hear from people. Because corporations are great for the purpose they serve, but the problem is they need to be regulated, and our government has failed to do that. So I'm going to explain to you how a publicly traded corporation works in a really simple form. They really don't exist except as a set of laws on paper. And what happened is, as long as there was laws controlling them and they weren't making the laws, well then, because we kept them governed, they didn't take on a mind of their own. But a publicly traded corporation isn't owned by anybody but the public. However, what you'll hear me call the riders of the beast, meaning the CEOs and the board of directors, well, they control these corporations, but they don't own them, even though they own a portion of them, and that's the reason they are on the board, because they have the largest portion. So when you take an entity that really doesn't belong to anyone and you give it the rights of United States citizens, like we did under Citizens United versus the FCC, which was a Supreme Court decision, we gave them the rights of United States citizens, which allow them to buy our politicians and and they basically were sold into slavery by the Supreme Court. And you'll find a lot of things about that. You can look up American Promise. There's people that are trying to do something about it, but they're trying to deal with the politicians, and the politicians can't do anything about it because the corporations own them. So the way a publicly traded corporation works is we all buy stock in it. And what happens is we only buy stock in the most profitable ones, right, when they're going up. So they have to keep a profit margin going so that people will buy the stock. But the only way to do that is to make them really efficient. But the problem is there comes a point where efficiency is out the window because you've already trimmed all the fat off. And when you do that, you're down to the beast ends up devouring itself, meaning its own employees and its everything and everyone that works for it. Because it has to stay competitive even when it's already trimmed off all the fat. So that's the reason in America why it is that they are paying less and less, and they are laying people off and making 5 people do the job of 10 or 15 people because they have to keep cutting costs in order to keep up the profit margin. And then once one of these beasts started sending their work overseas to a much cheaper wages, well, then they all had to follow suit. So there was laws that were supposed to keep these things in check, and they're not in place. And instead of the government running the corporations and keeping them contained, the corporations now own the politicians. And I'll tell you how they do that, and I'm going to put a video in a little card here and also in the description, and you'll find it right here. And I'm going to also put a playlist up there. There's a little eye on this screen. If you're not real familiar with YouTube, you click the eye in the other video and the playlist will appear. So when these corporations started to pay for our political campaigns, now they control the money. So even though they don't know that they're actually sold into slavery because they think they're only answering to a couple corporations, there's 3 corporations that own all the other corporations in America. It's BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. And if you go to Yahoo Finance and you look up all these publicly traded companies, including all of your banks, all of your oil companies, your pharmaceuticals, Amazon, Walmart, Johnson and Johnson. I mean all of it, friend. Your food supplies, they own almost everything. And what they don't own, they will. And they are now running ads, BlackRock and Vanguard. I've seen television ads. Now, before they were just investment companies, so they didn't need to really appeal to the general public. However, now they're buying up all the residential real estate, which is driving up the housing market. But that's the last thing that they didn't own, friend. They've turned this place into an old mining town. And this was all written in the Bible, but if you're not Christian, you won't understand it. And most Christians don't understand it because, well, it was written in code so that you wouldn't know it. But if you look in the Bible, you will see that what the Bible says in Revelation is that the thought of Satan is what is not yet is, meaning it is because God created it. It is not because it could never exist because only God really truly exists. Yet it is because He created it, and now we've manifested into flesh in the world. And that is a publicly traded corporation because it literally is a set of laws on paper. It doesn't exist other than that. And we've turned them into beasts that these riders of the beast are using to enslave us. And I'm sure they didn't intentionally do it in the beginning, but once they figured out where this was going, well, you know, you can see where it's going, friend. And go look at that playlist, Clues to the Kingdom. And I put stuff on there from science, I've put stuff on there from religion, so you can see a lot of different things going on that were biblical. But it really doesn't matter about that because I'm not really here to talk to Christians at this point, friend. I came on the cloud that everyone could see, and I thundered, and nobody's listened. So I do have a court date coming up, and I'm going to face these corporations in court because they think they're taking me to court, but it's just the opposite. They don't know that I'm setting them up. They think they're setting me up. But anyway, I've warned you all about that, and I've been trying to get people to join me because I don't really want it to go down this way, but I made God a promise. Now, those of you that don't believe in God, well, you won't believe that, but it doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. I do. And since I made God a promise, I'm going to fulfill it, period. And so I'm going to go to court, and I'm going to refuse to pay my debt. And it's to Truist Bank, which is owned by BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, along with all the other banks. So I'm going to make my stand against them because that's the first ones that took me to court. There's 3 banks that I owe, and if they all take me to court, and one doesn't do it, I'll go to the next, friend. It doesn't matter to me. We are not going to let our children get murdered by these corporations, and they are killing our children, whether you want to admit it or not. What's killing this nation is corporate cancer. America is a tribe, and because we will not act like a tribe, or the members of our tribe have become lost, scared, and alone. Christianity was not supposed to allow that to happen. Jesus told you what to do, and no one listened. And no one will listen to me when I talk Jesus either, but I did tell you what Jesus said. So, and I'm not looking here to raise an army that carries guns, friend, because that has no interest to me. Because I am Christian, and Jesus said that before me the kingdom suffered violence and was taken by force, but after me it won't. So I'm looking to raise an army that fights like the armies of Gandhi and Martin Luther King. If I have to die, I'll die, but I will not kill. Because killing doesn't do anything, and you all are my same members of the tribe that I am, friend. We are Americans. We're not Democrats. We're not Republicans. And we're not corporate. We're Americans. We are children of God in my book, and I love every Muslim and atheist and Christian the same. I don't love one more than the other. You are all created by my Creator, and I don't care whether you believe that or not, friend, but that's the way I see it. So I'm going to be making this stand, and nobody's standing with me. So understand that if I can't get an army of light to stand with me, I'm standing alone. and my life is not my concern at this point. I would rather die than watch you let your children get murdered while I do nothing about it. So either the Christians or whoever wants to join me can join me. But this thought of Satan made flesh is not going to destroy a nation that declared itself a Christian nation. So, and I've mentioned in other places, and you will find in there the Clues to the Kingdom, you will find a tour of one of their underground arks. And I'm sure it's one of many. But that's beside the point. But understand, the corporate elite are buying underground arks. And for you Christians, understand that Jesus told you, or actually it was in Revelation, not in words in red, but Revelation told you that this thought of Satan was going to try to steal my Father's age and that he wasn't going to allow it. So the corporate riders are not going to go underground into their arks and come back up and steal my Father's age. It's not going to happen. So I don't care how it doesn't happen. That's my Father is going to take care of that. And my Father is your Father, friend. So I'm not here to claim I'm anything special, because I'm just not. Because Jesus said, ye are gods. And because it was written in the scripture, it can't be undone. And so if I am God's child, so are you. And I don't care who you are, what religion or non-religion you are. In my book, me and you are human beings, but we're also children of God. And therefore, it is my job to see to it that the love of Christ is what comes across, not the insanity that's coming from what they're doing. So I keep putting out a call for people to join me, but nobody's listening. Leave me a comment and I'll get back with you, friend. I'm not a person that just doesn't answer when people make comments on here. My name is Jason Matlack, and you can find me on Facebook. Look under Bridgeport, Pennsylvania. That's where my thing is. It's not no longer where I reside, but that's irrelevant. So the point is that I keep trying to get people to listen, but nobody will listen. And if the Christians won't come to the wedding, I'll invite anybody, friend, because if they want to, this is the problem. Christians believe in a pre-tribulation rapture, which Jesus told you was a lie. Because he told you that at the end of the age that you were going to have to wake up and light your lamps. So understand that you think that you're going to be out of here before this all starts going down, but you're wrong. This Christian nation has a judgment against them because of what it's done. So you can either help me make this right, and what we're going to really need is people that are willing to feed the hungry and clothe the naked, because no matter which way this goes down, it's just not going to go down right, friend. Because those corporations are not going to let this go down right. You can guarantee it. And neither the politicians, because they're owned by the corporations. So you can either help me or not. But I'm planning on doing what I'm doing, and if no one stands with me, then I'll stand alone. And for you Christians, understand I'm willing to be your counterfeit Christ. Because I'm going to quote a Native American thing I saw on Facebook. We don't own this country. We borrowed it from our children. Our children get to inherit it, and then their children do. But because we refuse to think about what we're thinking about and letting this go down, I'm just not going to do it. So if you've heard me, you now have a decision to make. Are you going to stand for what's right, or are you going to let fear keep you in the dark like it's keeping everyone else in the dark? So I'm hoping that you'll join me, friend. And I love you because you're my Father's child, and therefore I love you no matter what. But there's choices to be made, and they're going to get made for you or with you, but the choice is going to be yours, friend. All right. May God bless you and yours.